Hello there, and welcome back to the Sleep Discovery channel. Tonight we wander into the green heart of the world, a realm where air is older than memory, and every leaf whispers a secret too soft for daylight to hear. The forest has always been more than trees. It is the planet's lungs, its memory, its silent guardian. It breathes out what we breathe in. It holds the balance of light and shadow, of birth and decay. When you walk beneath its canopy, you are stepping into the bloodstream of the earth itself, a slow, patient current that has been flowing since long before our kind learned to dream. You can almost hear it, the faint rustle of 1,000 branches, the sigh of wind winding through leaves like breath through lungs. Every sound is a note in the planet's quiet symphony. Every moment of stillness is alive with invisible motion. The forest does not rush. It teaches by being. Its wisdom is measured, not in seconds, but in centuries. The oldest trees have seen entire civilizations rise and fade. They were young when the stars we navigate by had different names. In their rings are the stories of droughts, storms, and summers forgotten by history. Each layer of wood, a page in the diary of the earth. A redwood can live for over 2,000 years, a spruce for nearly 10,000. They are timekeepers of a world that rarely stops long enough to listen. And if you could listen, truly listen, you might hear what they remember. The crackle of ancient lightning, the hush of glaciers retreating, the first call of the first bird. All of it still lives somewhere within their root. Beneath the bark, rivers of sap flow with quiet precision, the lifeblood of the tree, rising each morning with the sun and falling each night into the soil. Through tiny openings in their leaves, they exhale the oxygen that fills your lungs now. With every breath you take, you are sharing in exchange millions of years in the making. You give carbon, they give air, you sleep, and they dream in light. The canopy is a world unto itself, a city of leaves suspended high above the ground, where sunlight filters through in shifting gold. Each leaf is an engine, each branch a highway of motion. Birds build their homes here, insects trace invisible trails, and droplets of water hang on the edges of moss like tiny worlds waiting to fall. In some rainforests, the canopy is so dense that rain takes 10 minutes to reach the ground. In that time, entire ecosystems bloom and vanish in the wet light. Ferns unfurl, frogs sing, and orchids open their faces to the passing mist. Above, monkeys swing between branches older than their species. Below, shadows move like water, deep and endless. It is said that more life exists in a single square mile of tropical forest than in all the deserts and oceans combined. And yet, it is never chaotic. Each being plays its part. Each root and wing and whisper fits into the rhythm. The forest is a living symphony, and everything within it knows the notes. In the northern forests, the air smells of resin and frost. Pines stand tall like columns in an ancient temple, their needles singing softly when the wind passes through. The ground is carpeted in moss that glows faintly at dusk, soft enough to cradle a falling leaf. Every step you take releases the scent of rain and time, that strange mix of soil and memory. And even here, in the silence, there is motion. Beneath your feet, roots twist together, forming vast networks that stretch for miles. Trees share nutrients and warnings through these threads. If one tree is attacked by insects, others nearby will begin producing defense chemicals within hours. The forest thinks in its own way. It doesn't think in words or in pictures, but in chemistry, a language older and truer than ours. Every molecule exchanged between roots is a sentence, every shared nutrient a promise. The forest does not compete the way we imagine. It collaborates. It survives by kindness, a concept we too often forget. When you stand still in a forest, your heartbeat begins to match its rhythm. Your breath slows, your muscles soften, your mind quiets. Science calls this the biophilia effect, the natural peace that arises when we reconnect with living systems. Your nervous system recognizes the balance of the forest as home. Your body remembers what your mind has forgotten, that you are not separate from nature, but a continuation of it. Every breath you exhale becomes food for the leaves above. Every breeze that drifts through those leaves returns to you as you and the forest share a single cycle of respiration, a circular conversation in which life never truly pauses. The trees there grow tall and slender, reaching ever upward toward the light. Their roots spread wide like fingers, catching the nutrients washed down by the storm. The ground is soft, alive with decomposition, leaves melting into earth, earth into life again. In that perpetual wetness, fungi shimmer under fallen logs, and the air hums with unseen wings. At night, the forest glows faintly with bioluminescent insects, their lights pulsing in patterns that mimic the stars hidden above the clouds. It is easy to forget, standing there in the green twilight, that you are still on Earth. It feels instead like the heartbeat of another world, slower, steadier, more forgiving. Forests breathe in ways we are only beginning to understand. They draw carbon from the air and store it in wood, in soil, in their very shadows. Each tree becomes a living reservoir of the planet's memory, a guardian against the fever of time. In this way, forests cool the earth, not just through shade, but through the gentle alchemy of photosynthesis, the endless exchange between light and life. When you look up into a canopy of leaves, you are seeing sunlight slowed down, made solid for a moment, before returning to air. It's a kind of miracle so constant we forget to call it one. The forest turns light into breath. It turns time into form, and in its patience, it teaches that everything can become something beautiful if given enough stillness. Every forest is a story, and no two are the same. There are rainforests that whisper in eternal summer, and boreal forests that sleep beneath snow half the year. There are mangrove forests with roots that breathe through salt water, and cloud forests that hang suspended in mist, their branches dripping with moss and silent. Yet beneath their differences, each shares the same promise: to give more than it takes. A single mature tree can produce enough oxygen for 10 people each year. A single acre of forest can hold hundreds of tons of carbon, locked safely beneath its root. And when the forest falls, the earth exhales its stored breath, warming slightly, as though sighing in grief. But for now, it still stands. Millions of square miles of green breathing quietly across the planet, a vast sleeping body whose dreams sustain us all. Beneath the forest, there is another forest, a darker, quieter one, a mirror world where sunlight never reaches, and yet, life still burns in secret way. If you could walk there, shrinking yourself until the soil became sky, you would see highways of roots winding through the dark, some thick and ancient, some young and tender, some wrapped in silver threads of mycelium, like veins of starlight, running through black earth. This is the hidden network of the forest, a vast web of communication, connection, and care. Every root speaks to another, every fallen leaf is a message received. Nutrients, warnings, even kindness, flow here, in chemical form. As scientists call it, the mycorrhizal network. It's a partnership as old as the first forest. The fungi bring minerals from stone, and the roots feed them sugars from the sun. Each gives what it can, and each takes only what it needs. Together, they build the world above, a cooperation so complete, it makes competition seem like a forgotten idea. The soil is not dirt, it is alive. In a single handful of forest soil, there are more organisms than there are stars in the galaxy. Bacteria, nematodes, fungi, and roots, a teeming, unseen civilization beneath every step you take. Here, nothing is wasted. A fallen leaf becomes a banquet. A broken twig becomes a home. A raindrop becomes a river, carrying nutrients downward in silence. The forest floor breathes slowly, taking in carbon, releasing life. It is the quiet machinery of existence, perfect, endless, tireless. Sometimes, the forest speaks when a pine tree is bitten by an insect, it releases chemicals that travel through the air, warning nearby trees of the danger. Within hours, the others begin producing their own defenses. The air fills with invisible conversation, messages drifting like perfume through sunlight. Beneath the surface, the same thing happens in shadow. Roots send distress signals through the fungal network. A dying tree shares its remaining sugars with the young before it falls. The soil remembers. It holds the echoes of generosity, recording the stories of those who came before. Every tree you see standing in the light owes its strength to what lies below. There are roots so vast that they stretch across acres of land. One organism, many trunks. In North America, there stands a forest called Pando, a trembling aspen grove that is not many trees, but each trunk you see is a shoot from a single root system, a single living being, older than any civilization. Pando has been growing for over 80,000 years. It has survived fire, drought, frost, and the rise and fall of countless species. Its name means ice spread. It is the largest living organism on Earth, a forest that is also a singular soul. When you walk through it, you walk through time itself, each rustling leaf a heartbeat from another era. In tropical forests, the roots are shallower, but wider, spreading out like wings to catch the heavy rain. There, the soil is thin, and nutrients vanish quickly, so the trees have learned to hold hands, their roots intertwining beneath the surface, sharing strength and balance. Even the fallen trunks continue to serve, becoming bridges for new seedlings, corridors for insects, sanctuaries for moss. Death and life are not opposites here. They are partners. If you pause long enough in a forest, you begin to notice the sound beneath silence, a faint hum, a vibration that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. It's not the wind, nor the insects, but the subtle frequency of life at work. Scientists can measure it: tiny electrical pulses moving through soil, rhythms of energy exchanged between organisms. The earth is not still. It is always whispering. This is how the forest breathes, not only through leaves, but through roots and fungi, through the pulse of decay and renewal. It is a slow respiration that spans centuries. When you exhale, the trees inhale. When the trees exhale, the world itself grows calm. In the heart of old forests, where roots have intertwined for generations, the ground becomes a tapestry of memory. Every fallen branch is a story, retold in bark and moss. Every patch of lichen a living map of time. The soil grows rich and soft, like a blanket woven by patience. And within it, tiny insects, invisible worms, and microfungi work in perfect coordination, each one fulfilling its role in the quiet economy of life. They break down what once lived, and in doing so, they create the foundation for what will live next. There is no waste, only circulation. If you listen closely enough, you can almost hear gratitude in the stillness of it all. Some trees can recognize their own offspring. Experiments have shown that mother trees send more nutrients to seedlings that share their DNA than to strangers nearby. Through the mycorrhizal network, they nurture the next generation. They feed the young even in shade, until the saplings are strong enough to reach light on their own. It is not emotion as we understand it, but it is something close, a form of empathy written in chemistry. Perhaps that is what love looks like, when translated into the language of roots. At night, the forest floor glows faintly. Bioluminescent fungi trace thin lines of light through fallen leaves, a map of the network made visible for those who wait long enough in darkness. The glow is soft, pale green, as if the earth itself were dreaming just below the surface. Fireflies drift between trunks like floating stars, and dew gathers on moss like constellations of water. The forest above sleeps, but below, the night is alive with slow brilliance. Every root is busy, every filament at work. While you rest, the world renews itself, one cell at a time. There is no silence in the soil. There is only peace, and in that peace, everything grows. When you walk through a forest again, remember that each step connects you to billions of lives beneath. The ground that holds you is alive with kindness. The roots that cradle your weight are older than your species, and every breath you take is part of their endless exchange, a conversation that never stopped. The forest will always listen. All you have to do is be still enough to hear it breathe. The forest breathes, not like we do, not with lungs or lips or sound, but with the slow, patient motion of air moving through green. Each leaf is a lung, each blade of grass a tiny set of ribs, expanding with sunlight. When dawn touches the canopy, the forest wakes, and the breath begins again. Through the miracle of photosynthesis, light becomes food, air becomes light, carbon dioxide enters the leaf, and in silence, it is transformed, split, and reassembled into sugars, into oxygen, into the invisible gift that fills your chest with every breath you take. It is the most perfect alchemy in the universe, the turning of light into matter, of energy into existence. The sun passes overhead, and the air between trunks grows heavy and sweet. The scent of chlorophyll and life, invisible streams of oxygen, rise through the warm air, mixing with clouds, drifting over mountains, crossing oceans. The air you breathe right now may have been exhaled by a forest thousands of miles away, a pine grove in Siberia, a mangrove swamp in Indonesia, a eucalyptus woodland in Australia. All air is shared air. All breath is shared breath. You are not separate from the forest respiration. You are part of it, a rhythm that began before thought and will continue long after sound fades. When night comes, the breath reverses. The trees inhale oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide, and rest. The forest becomes a sleeping body, dreaming in molecules and mist. Yet even then the balance remains. The air stays rich enough to sustain, the carbon enough to feed the roots below. It is not stillness, but a softer kind of motion, the slow breathing of the world between dreams. If you stand in a forest at night and breathe in deeply, you can almost feel that exchange, the mingling of your lungs with theirs. It is the closest thing to prayer the planet knows. Forests do not only breathe for themselves, they breathe for the earth. Together, they create what scientists call the biogenic pump, a vast global system that moves moisture and carbon across continents. When trees transpire, that is, when they release water vapor through their leaves, they create clouds. Those clouds drift and condense, raining again on faraway lands. A single large tree can release hundreds of liters of water into the air each day. A forest the size of the Amazon creates its own weather. It pulls moisture from the ocean, releases it as rain, feeds rivers that return again to the sea. The forest is not just alive, it is self-sustaining, self-watering, self-renewing, and all of it happens quietly, without intention, without pride, just the steady rhythm of life doing what it was born to do. Trees sway in the wind, and their movements create low-frequency tones that travel through the ground. The earth itself becomes a resonant chamber, and the forest plays it like an instrument. You can't hear it, but your body feels. That's why standing among trees can bring such calm. Your heartbeat entrains with their vibration. Your breath slows to match their tempo. It's not imagination, it's resonance. You are literally tuned to the frequency of the forest. The colors of the forest are part of its breathing too. The green of the leaves, the deep amber of the bark, the silver gray of moss. Each hue absorbs and reflects different wavelengths of light. Green is the light that trees do not use for photosynthesis. It is what they give back to the world. When you look at a forest, what you see is generosity made visible. Every photon that strikes a leaf is a small miracle. Some become sugar, some become shade, some bounce back to your eyes, reminding you that giving and receiving are often the same act viewed from two sides. Deep in tropical jungles, the air is so thick with breath that you can see it. Mist rising from the canopy, steam curling from the ground after rain. Each wisp is a sign of respiration, of water returning to the sky. Clouds gather, then move inland, carrying the forest's exhalation across deserts, over plains, feeding lands that may never see a single tree. The planet does not forget its teachers. There is a kind of peace in realizing that breathing is universal. Every living thing participates in it. Trees, mosses, whales, birds, even stones in their slow erosion. The exchange between what is taken and what is given is the same in all. In the forest, this truth is visible. You can see the mist rise. You can hear the leaves whisper. You can feel the air grow cooler beneath the shade. Each of these is a fragment of the same great respiration, the world inhaling itself. When you take a breath now, you are joining that rhythm. You are breathing with the trees, with the soil, with everything that has ever lived. In Japan, there is a practice called Shinrin-yoku, or forest bath. It doesn't mean swimming or walking, but simply being among trees, breathing their air, listening to their silence. Studies show that it lowers blood pressure, reduces stress hormones, and quiets the restless circuits of the brain. But beyond the science, there is something deep. When you breathe forest air, you are breathing molecules released by life itself, the terpenes and phytoncides that trees emit. They strengthen your immune system. They calm your nerves. They remind your body of balance. It is as though the forest is exhaling not just oxygen, but tranquility. You cannot help but feel lighter here. Every breath carries peace. Ancient fallen forests continue to breathe. When a great tree falls, its decomposition releases nutrients that feed the soil. Fungi move in. Insects arrive. Moss begins to grow on bark. Over years, the trunk softens, turning back into earth. What was once a giant of light becomes part of the breath of the ground. And when new seedlings take root there, they grow from that same air, reborn from the breath of ancestors. The forest's respiration never stops. It is not life and death. It is one unbroken cycle, forever inhaling, forever exhaling, forever serene. If you listen now, in your own quiet space, you might feel it. The soft expansion in your chest as you breathe in, the gentle release as you breathe out. It is the same rhythm the forest knows. You are not apart from it. You are its echo. The forest breathes through you. The forest is never empty. Even in silence, it is full. Every leaf shelters a heartbeat. Every shadow moves with invisible life. The forest, when morning light filters through the branches, the air stirs, softly at first, as if the forest itself were waking from a dream. Mist drifts low, catching the light in strands of silver. And within that mist, the creatures of the quiet begin their day. A beetle crawls over bark, older than memory. An ant carries a grain of soil 10 times its size. Far above, a bird calls, a single, pure note, and the sound seems to hang between the trees like a drop of water that never falls. Each movement, each vibration, belongs perfectly to its place. There is no hurry here, only rhythm. The smallest creatures do the greatest work. In the forest floor's dark corridors, millions of insects, mites, worms, and microbes break down the fallen leaves, twigs, bark, and bone, returning them to the circle of growth. They are the quiet engineers of the world. Without them, the forest would choke on its own abundance. Because of them, it breathes freely, endlessly renewed. Every grain of soil you touch has passed through life 1,000 times. It has been digested, decomposed, rebuilt. It has seen centuries in the space of inches. If you could magnify the ground beneath your feet, you'd see rivers of life flowing unseen, termites shaping galleries, beetles carving tunnels, fungal threads weaving bridges. It is a city that never sleeps, a billion tiny hearts working in harmony. Above the ground, another world moves in rhythm with light. Birds weave between branches like notes on invisible strings. Their calls echo and answer, forming songs older than words. Each species has its own language, and yet, together, they create something universal, the sound of belonging. Some birds remember the shape of the forest even after it changes. They return to the same tree year after year, though its branches have grown in new directions. They do not navigate by sight, but by memory, the invisible map of air currents and scent. They are guided by the forest's pulse, and when they sing at dawn, their voices awaken the day. This is the dawn chorus, a collective breath, a song of gratitude to life. No conductor, no rehearsal, only perfect, effortless harmony. There are mammals here too, hidden in the hush. Deer that move like ghosts through ferns. Foxes whose paws barely touch the earth. In the deepest stillness, you might hear the slow cracking of branches as a bear passes. Its weight ancient, its pace unhurried. They do not disturb the forest. They are part of its thought, its steady dreaming. At night, when the sky is a river of stars, the forest changes form again. The diurnal world closes its eyes, and the nocturnal one awakens. Owls glide between trees, their wings silent, feathers designed to swallow sound. Bats flit through invisible paths, catching the soft percussion of insects. Moths unfold from bark, like pieces of the night itself. Everything shifts, yet nothing breaks the stillness. This is the genius of the forest. Motion without noise, activity without chaos. Every life form knows its place in the rhythm. In tropical jungles, where the heat hums even after sunset, the creatures' songs become symphonies. Frogs croak from unseen ponds. Crickets play their endless violins. Cicadas pulse with electric rhythm. The sound is almost overwhelming, a tide of vibration that fills the dark. But to the forest, it is not noise, it is breath. Every tone contributes to the grand respiration of night, and in that sound, something ancient stirs. The human mind softens, recognizing the pattern, the repetition, the rhythm, the low hum. All of it mirrors the frequencies of the heart. This is why we sleep more easily to nature's music. The brain relaxes because it remembers. The forest's song is the sound of safety, of continuity, of home. Even the trees themselves provide shelter and sustenance to life unseen. Each trunk is a tower of biodiversity, home to moss, lichen, beetles, fungi, birds, and nests. A single oak can host thousands of species. Its branches form kingdoms of ants and caterpillars. Its bark holds pockets of water where tiny frogs drink. Its roots feed mycorrhiza, which feed the roots of others. It is a world within a world, a planet within a planet. And when that oak falls, its story does not end. It becomes bridge, nursery, shelter, soil. Death in the forest is never an end, only an exchange. Some forests hold creatures found nowhere else. In Madagascar, tiny lemurs with golden eyes move through the canopy like thoughts through dream. In the rainforests of Papua, birds of paradise unfold feathers that shimmer with impossible colors, light sculpted into movement. In the Pacific Northwest, salamanders breathe through their skin, absorbing the forest's moisture direct. And in the Amazon, sloths hang motionless for hours, their fur home to algae that makes them green as moss. They are living extensions of the forest itself, creatures evolved, not apart from it, but as part of its design. Every adaptation tells a story of patience, every motion, a poem of survival written slowly across time. But not all the creatures of the forest move in sight. Some live beneath bark, some within leaves, some in air, so thin and still it seems empty. They are the invisible workers of balance. Their lives may last a day, a season, a breath, yet without them, the forest would falter. It is humility made ecosystem, each being essential, each moment sacred. The ants that tunnel, the beetles that carve, the fungi that feast, the fox that hunts, the owl that waits, the deer that grazes, the wolf that returns balance again. All of them form the circle, each one turning gently within it. Sometimes the forest feels conscious, not in words, not in thoughts, but in awareness. It responds, it adjusts, it remembers. When a tree falls, light floods in. Seeds that have waited for decades awaken. New life rushes upward to fill the space. The system heals itself with grace. This is intelligence, not of mind, but of pattern, a choreography written in the mathematics of survival. The creatures do not know the whole, and yet, together, they create perfection. It is design without a designer, order without command. The longer you watch the creatures of the forest, the more you begin to understand the illusion of separation. Each life form is not a thing apart, but a continuation of something larger. The deer is not different from the grass it eats, nor the grass from the soil that feeds it. Even the predator, in its hunger, is part of balance. The wolf makes the deer swift. The deer makes the grass strong. The grass makes the soil rich, and the soil makes the forest whole. And in its turning, it teaches what we once knew, that peace is not the absence of change, but the acceptance of it. The forest has not always looked this way. Long before leaves unfurled, before roots pierced soil, before even the first bird called through morning light, there were shadows of forests taking shape in silence. The story of the forest begins hundreds of millions of years ago, when the land was still raw and trembling, and the seas were thick with ancient life. On the shores of those early oceans, mosses crept upward, small and fragile, drinking light for the first time. They were the pioneers, soft green promises of what would one day become the lungs of the planet. From them came ferns, then towering horsetails, then trees unlike any we see now, giants with bark like armor and leaves that looked like scale. The earth was warmer then, the air heavy with carbon dioxide. Each new forest pulled the gas from the sky, cooling the world degree by degree, turning chaos into balance. It was the first great act of planetary healing. The ancient forests gave us coal. Their fallen trunks pressed under rock and time turned into black memory. When we burn that coal today, we are breathing the ghosts of those forests back into the air. It is strange to think that the warmth in your room, the light on your desk, might be made of leaves that fell 300 million years ago. The forest does not die, it transforms. Even when its body becomes stone, its essence remains, the chemistry of sunlight stored for eternity. Over time, new kinds of forests rose, the age of conifers, of pines and spruces, and cypresses, brought new shapes to the skyline. Their needles captured light in thin, patient strands. Their cones protected seeds through frost and drought. These trees taught the world endurance. They stretched toward cold stars and survive. Then came the flowering trees, painting the planet with color for the first time. Bees, butterflies, and birds followed, drawn to nectar and pollen, to sweetness and color, to life-feeding light. Forests became symphonies of light and movement, each creature a musician in the long song of evolution. But not all change was gentle. Fire has always walked beside the forest. Lightning strikes, dry wind, the crackle of life meeting its transformation. At first it seems destruction, flames racing through leaves, smoke turning the air to ghost. But even in that violence, the forest is not afraid. Fire is not the end, it is renewal. Some trees, like the sequoia and the lodgepole pine, need fire to live. Their cones only open in heat. Their seeds only germinate in ash. The flames clear the old and make space for the new. The smoke carries nutrients back into the sky, and when rain returns, the soil is richer than before. Within a year, green shoots push through the gray. Within a decade, the canopy closes again. Within a century, it is as though the fire never was, except for the strength it left behind. The forest remembers, but it does not grieve. It continues, always. It continues. In frozen lands, forests have learned other forms of patience. The boreal forest, or taiga, stretches across the top of the world, a sea of evergreen beneath endless sky. For half the year, it sleeps under snow. The cold hardens bark. Ice fills the air like glass. Yet beneath the frost, roots still breathe. Sap thickens but never stops. Even in 40 daras, life hums quietly under white silence. When spring comes, the thaw is like rebirth. Snow melts in soft rivulets, and the forest exhales, steam rising from branches, the scent of resin sweet in the air. Birds return from migration, calling out across thawed rivers. Everything begins again, not because time demands it, but because the cycle is the forest's nature. To live, to rest, to wake, to live again. Some forests are older than time itself. In Australia, Stands of Wollemi pine still grow in secret valleys, species unchanged since the dinosaurs walked beneath their shade. For 90 million years, they have survived ice ages, droughts, and their needles are the same shape they were when the first mammals learned to climb. They are green fossils, breathing links between past and present. In Japan, there are cedars, whose roots have held the same stones for 2,000 years. In California, the bristlecone pines twist their limbs in slow motion across millennia, their bark gnarled but alive. Some are 5,000 years old, older than pyramids, older than writing, older than memory. To touch one is to touch eternity in wood. The forest has watched the continents drift, the glaciers carve valleys, the rivers shift their beds. It has seen species appear, flourish, fade, and be replaced by others, and still it stands, never static, always becoming. When storms rip through the canopy, and trees fall in splintered light, the forest does not end, it rearranges. A fallen trunk becomes nurselog, hosting mosses, seedlings and insects. Decay becomes garden, ruins become foundation. The system does not fight change, it flows with it, turning loss into space for growth. This is how the forest survives everything. It never resists transformation, it welcomes it. Humans, too, have always lived beside the forest, though we forget how deep the connection runs. For most of our history, the forest was home, shelter, food, and story. We carved our first tools from its branches, our first fires from its fallen limbs. The first music was the sound of wind through hollow wood. The first gods lived in trees. Even now, when we build our cities of stone and steel, we carry pieces of the forest within us. The scent of pine can calm our hearts. The color green soothes our vision. We build furniture from trunks, paper from leaves, and dreams from the memory of shade. We have never left the forest, we only built over it. And still the forest endures. Even in places where it was cut down, it waits. Seeds lie dormant for decades, sometimes centuries, until the conditions return. Then they sprout again, like memories rediscovered after long silence. In abandoned cities, roots creep through cracks in concrete, trees rise through roofs, moss covers walls. The forest does not reclaim out of anger, but out of inevitability. It is simply returning home. The sinews, we call it overgrowth. The earth calls it balance. The forest, through time, teaches one thing above all, that resilience is not resistance, but adaptation. That to change gracefully is the highest form of survival. Every ring in every trunk is a reminder. You can endure storms, you can bend with wind, you can shed what no longer serves you. And in the shedding, you make space for new growth. The forest knows this. It has always known. The world slows again. Now we turn to the human connection, the soft thread that binds our hearts to the rhythm of the forest. No beginning, no end, just continuation, as if the earth itself were speaking through calm breath and memory. Humans were born from the forest. Our earliest ancestors lived beneath its canopies, among the shadows of green, where rain fell soft and light filtered like water. There, our senses evolved to read the quiet, to listen for meaning in sound, to find safety in the whisper of leaves. The rustle of a branch meant wind, the crack of a twig meant movement, the color of moss meant direction. Every sight, scent and sound was language. The forest was our first teacher. They didn't now. Our minds remember. When we walk among trees, our heart rate slows, our blood pressure falls, our thoughts grow still. We do not choose this peace. It is chosen for us, a gift from the ancient part of the brain that remembers what safe feels like. In the forest, we are home again. There's a reason our eyes are most comfortable with green. It's the color of balance, the center of the visible spectrum, where light rests easiest on the retina. To look at trees is to soothe the nervous system. The pupils dilate just enough to take in more light. The body relaxes, and the brain releases dopamine, the chemical of calm satisfaction. It is not poetry, it is physiology. The forest rewires us to peace. It is the antidote to speed. It slows everything back to the pace of breath, the rhythm of wind, the time of leaves. When scientists study the effects of walking in the woods, they find something remarkable. Even 30 minutes among trees can lower cortisol, the stress hormone, by more than 20%. The immune system becomes stronger. The mind becomes clearer. The prefrontal cortex, the part that worries, quietly steps aside. This is not magic. It is biology, remembering its home. Each tree emits invisible compounds called phytoncides. These are the forest's natural antibiotics, protection against bacteria and fungus. When we breathe them, our own immune cells become more active, as though our bodies recognize the chemistry of health in the air. The forest heals us because we were made from the same breath. In Japan, the practice is called Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing. There are no pools, no rituals, no goals. You simply walk slowly beneath the trees. You listen, you breathe, you let the forest wash over you. Each step becomes meditation, each sound a lesson in presence. A bird's call, a gust of wind, the sound of a branch giving way under rain, all become part of the same slow conversation between body and world. The longer you stay, the more the boundaries dissolve. You stop being a visitor. You become part of the pattern. There is a silence in the forest that is not empty. It is full of waiting, the breath between sounds. We are so used to noise that true quiet feels like awakening. In that silence, we begin to hear the subtler rhythms, the hum of insects, the creak of trunks, the whisper of our own heartbeat. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the space that holds. It's the air between raindrops, the stillness between bird calls, the pause between breaths. The forest gives us this silence freely, and through it, it teaches us how to listen again. Every culture that has lived close to forests has known their power over the human spirit. To the Celts, trees were sacred beings, the oak a symbol of strength, the birch of rebirth, the yew of eternity. In Nordic lands, they believed the world itself was a tree, its roots deep in darkness, its branches holding the star. In many indigenous traditions, trees are relatives, not resources. They are elders, keepers of stories, recorders of time. The Haudenosaunee people call them the standing people. When they fall, they are returned to the earth with gratitude for their long service in silence. We once spoke to trees with reverence. Somewhere along the way, we forgot their language, but the forest has not forgotten ours. Listen closely, and you can still feel it, the pulse that runs through wood and soil and stone. It's slow, but steady, the heartbeat of the world. Each forest carries a kind of music unique to its place. In the tropics, it's percussion, raindrops, insects and frogs, in syncopated rhythm. In temperate woods, it's the soft hum of wind through deciduous leaves. In pine forests, it's the low, resonant whisper of needles singing against each other. If you listen long enough, your body begins to align with the tempo. Your breath lengthens, your heartbeat matches the pattern, your mind quiet. You are tuned once again to Earth's original frequency. There's an invisible network beneath your feet that mirrors our own connections. The mycorrhizal web, the wood wide web, as scientists call it, is a system of fungal threads connecting the roots of trees. Through it, they share sugars, water, even warnings. A mother tree can feed her seedlings through this underground web, nourishing them in shade until they can reach the light. When one tree is wounded by insects, it sends chemical signals through the soil, alerting neighbors to strengthen their defenses. It's not human language, but it is communication. It's care, it's memory, what we call empathy, the forest calls survival. Every root is an act of generosity, To walk among trees is to step into that communication. You may not see it, but you feel it. That sense that the forest is aware of you, not with eyes, but with presence. The air shifts slightly, the wind moves differently. Some part of you that never had words feels seen. Perhaps that's why people weep in forests without knowing why. The body remembers what the mind has forgotten. Here, you are recognized. You are not a stranger to the world. You are part of it. Forests also shape how we think. People who live near trees are statistically happier, more creative, and more patient. Children raised near green spaces have better attention spans and stronger imaginations. Writers retreat to cabins. Monks build temples in groves. Painters set up easels by streams. The mind, when surrounded by trees, sees more clearly, dreams more vividly. The forest does not just feed our lungs, it feeds our imagination. Even in cities, we recreate forests without realizing it. We plant parks and gardens. We line streets with trees. We fill our homes with houseplants. It's not decoration, it's instinct. Our brains crave fractal patterns, the shapes found in leaves, branches, clouds, and rivers. They make us feel calm because they remind us of home. This is when the forest begins to glow. Mosses along fallen logs, gather faint light, their tips glimmering with dew. Tiny mushrooms pulse with bioluminescence, soft green halos in the darkness, like the earth itself whispering light back to the stars. In the Pacific Islands, there are caves where fungi line the walls, casting a faint illumination, bright enough to read by. And in Japan's humid forests, the Mycena lux cauli, mushroom of the heavens, shines with a light so subtle that it seems to breathe. To see these glowing fungi in the quiet of the night is to watch life revealing the secret of persistence, that even in darkness, the world finds ways to shine. The leaves catch starlight and scatter it in trembling patterns across the ground. It feels as though the sky and the forest are mirroring each other, one made of fire, one made of chlorophyll, both alive in different tempos. Owls glide between trunks with wings that do not make sound. Their feathers are fringed like soft cloth, designed to break the air silently. They are the ghosts of flight, the watchers of the woods. Avid bats flutter among the branches, using echoes to paint the world in sound. Each chirp returns a picture, a map of air and motion, drawn entirely with invisible lines. Their sonar is so precise that they can detect a thread as thin as a human hair. To them, the night is not dark. It is full of texture and light made of sound. In tropical forests, the night hums with electricity. Crickets trill like distant wires. Tree frogs fill the air with rhythmic chirps, each note tuned to the humidity of the hour. Cicadas vibrate their membranes, producing sound so powerful that entire branches seem to resonate with it. This collective music is not random. It is coordination, a pulse of life measured in sound waves. When you listen closely, the chaos resolves into pattern, like the heartbeat of the earth made audible. The rhythm of the forest at night is the rhythm of sleep, slow, repetitive, continuous. It lulls even the stars into stillness. There are eyes in the dark, but they do not threaten. They glint softly, curious, calm. Deer moving through ferns, foxes trotting between roots, raccoons washing fruit in shallow streams. Each animal follows its own script, perfectly adapted to the world's quiet hours. They do not fear the night, they belong to it. To watch them is to understand serenity in motion, no wasted effort, no rush, every step placed exactly where it should be. Even predators move with grace. A wolf crossing moonlit snow is not fierce, it is elegance embodied. Its breath rises in pale clouds, its paws silent on the frost. The forest watches it pass without alarm, for balance requires both stillness and motion, both creation and taking. The air at night feels different, cooler, heavier, richer with scent. Without sunlight, the forest speaks in aroma. The sweetness of pine resin thickens. The damp scent of soil, petrichor, rises. Flowers that stay closed all day unfold in the dark, spreading perfumes designed not for bees but for moths and bats. Night blooming jasmine, moonflowers, and orchids send their fragrance far through the air, calling unseen visitors. Pollination continues, even as the world sleeps, and we sleep too within that cycle. Our own circadian rhythm mirrors the planet's pulse. When light fades, melatonin rises, our bodies slow, our breathing deepens. It is the same chemistry that moves the leaves to close, the flowers to rest. We are biological reflections of the forest's night. Sometimes, fog settles between the trees, like a living thing. It moves on invisible wind currents, folding and unfolding like breath. Sound becomes softer, distance vanishes. You can hear water dripping from branches, the faint scratch of an animal's claws, the creak of wood expanding and shrinking in the cool. Everything feels close, as if the forest itself were leaning in to whisper. It is in moments like these that people say the forest dreams. Science would call it nocturnal photosynthesis, dew formation, microbial respiration, but those are only words for the mechanic. The truth feels simpler. The forest is alive, even in sleep. It continues its work quietly, like a mind processing thoughts in darkness. In the Amazon, there are trees that bloom only once a year, always at night. Their flowers open all at once, covering the canopy in pale blossoms that glow faintly under the moon. By morning they are gone, pollinated, wilted, already turning toward renewal. Entire species of bats and moths depend on those few hours, an ecosystem compressed into a single dream. And in northern forests, the aurora sometimes spills across the sky, green, violet, silver ribbons rippling above the treetops. The snow reflects the light upward, so that it seems the forest glows from within. It is as if the earth were lifting its soul to speak briefly with the stars. For a moment, everything shines: sky, leaf, ice, thought. Then the colors fade, and silence returns, as if the universe has taken a slow breath and exhaled again. Even the trees respond to night in subtle ways. Their branches droop slightly, a motion so small it took lasers to detect. It is the tree's version of sleep, a release of pressure, a moment of rest. In the morning, they rise again with the light. The entire forest bows to darkness and awakens with the sun. Scientists think this nightly rhythm helps conserve water, balances pressure in the xylem, and resets the flow of sap. But perhaps it is more than that. Perhaps the forest too needs dreams. Dreams are the brain's way of sorting memory. Maybe the forest's nightly rest does the same. The fallen leaves, the scent of rain, the passing of clouds, each stored in chemical patterns beneath the soil. Every morning, the forest wakes slightly changed, its growth rings recording what the night has taught. It is an endless dialogue between day and dark, light and shadow, wakefulness and rest. To listen to the forest at night is to hear the planet thinking in its sleep. And when moonlight filters through branches and touches the ground, you can almost see time itself pause. Shadows move so slowly that you begin to sense your own stillness, your own breath matching theirs. The forest, the earth, and you, all breathing together, all dreaming the same quiet dream. There is no boundary now between life and night, between waking and sleeping. There is only continuity, the unbroken awareness that everything rests in everything else. You can let go here, you can drift. The forest will hold you. You may not know it, but your body follows the same cycles that govern the forest, the same tides of energy, the same patterns of light and rest. Every living thing sleeps, though not always in ways we recognize. Trees rest in darkness, their leaves folding inward to conserve energy. Flowers close their petals. Insects still their wings. Even the soil slows its respiration as temperature drops. The entire ecosystem enters its nightly meditation. Sleep is not an absence of life. It is a secret kind of work, a repair, a reorganization, a renewal. Inside you, while you dream, cells rebuild, memories settle, hormones recalibrate. The forest performs this same ritual each night. Roots absorb minerals, leaves shift nutrients, Fungi transfer sugars between neighbors. Even in darkness, creation continues. Scientists studying plant behavior have found that trees respond to light long after sunset. They sense the faint glow of the moon, the silver reflection of starlight on dew. Some even adjust their water flow to match the lunar cycle, as though the tides that move the oceans also move within wood and leaf. The connection between sky and soil is absolute. What the moon does to the sea, it also does to the forest. What it does to the forest, it does to us. You and the trees dream under the same pull of gravity, the same ancient rhythm of orbit and return. Every sleeping creature, every sleeping root, breathes in time with the turning of the earth. When you lie in darkness and drift towards sleep, you are joining a planetary ritual billions of years old. Molecules in your brain quiet themselves. Electrical storms fade to gentle pulses. The mind begins to replay fragments of day, memories, sensations, stray thoughts, blending them into patterns that make new understanding. This is what the forest does each season. It replays its own memory, the drought, the fire, the flood, the bloom. And from those memories, it grows wiser, stronger, more resilient. In that way, sleep is the Earth's first intelligence, a universal way of remembering and healing. Dreams are not limited to the mind. The forest dreams in form. A seed sleeping under snow is a dream of spring. A bud closed tight at dusk is a dream of dawn. The pattern of veins in a leaf is the memory of a river, drawn in green. Every root reaching toward water is the echo of the world imagining growth. When you dream of walking through a forest, perhaps it is the forest dreaming of you. Neuroscientists have found that the sounds of nature, wind through trees, rain on leaves, the steady rhythm of waves, stimulate alpha brain waves, the same frequencies that appear in meditation. These are the waves of calm awareness, of deep relaxation, just before sleep. When you listen to the forest, your brain literally changes shape. Your thoughts become slower. Your body enters alignment with the world's breathing. That is why nature sounds are used for sleep therapy. It is not suggestion. It is synchronization. You are tuning your consciousness to the same frequency that governs trees and tides. The forest is the planet's original lullaby. Imagine standing alone in a midnight forest. No light except the stars, no sound except the whisper of wind. You breathe in, and the air tastes of water and wood and time. You breathe out, and your breath becomes part of the mist rising through branches. Every exhale is you entering the forest. There is no separation, only reciprocity. Perhaps that is what true sleep feels like. The dissolving of edges, the merging of self with everything. In sleep, the brain replays the day's sensory details. Light through leaves, the sound of rain, the color of bark, the rhythm of steps. It converts them into dreams, mixing them with imagination and emotion. It is art created from memory. The forest does the same through evolution. Each generation of seed remembers the conditions of its ancestors. It learns from drought, from shade, from fire. The genome of a tree is its dream of adaptation, what it imagines the future will require. And so, forests too are dreamers, thinking not in hours, but in ages. The mind has changed, rearranged itself into something slightly wiser, slightly softer. The same is true of the forest at dawn. The air smells new. The leaves shine as though reborn. Dew glitters like unspoken gratitude. You are witnessing renewal in its purest form. The world after dreaming. Every sunrise is evidence that rest is not an interruption of life, but an essential part of it. The forest rests, and therefore it grows. You rest, and therefore you become. If the forest could speak in words, it might say this: be still, grow slowly. Let darkness be your teacher, as much as light. Nothing is lost, nothing is wasted. You are safe within the circle of change, the language of the earth, translated through wood and air, and quiet time. As you breathe now, some of the oxygen in your lungs was made by trees, older than your species. Some of the carbon in your body once lived inside a leaf, a fern, a forest long turned to stone. You are not outside the dream of Earth. You are one of its recurring thoughts. And when you sleep tonight, the planet will sleep with you. In the slow breathing of oceans, in the whisper of roots, in the murmur of the wind across leaves. Every dream you have is the continuation of that greater dream. The forest, the sky, the sea, the human heart, all connected by the rhythm of rest, the rhythm of return, the rhythm of return, the rhythm of renewal, the rhythm of renewal, the rhythm of renewal. There is no boundary between your heartbeat and the planets. You were never separate, only unaware. The Riam pray. Now, in this quiet, you remember, nothing in the forest is ever truly lost. Every leaf that falls, every creature that dies, every droplet of rain that sinks into the soil, all of it begins again. It is circular, a spiral that turns through time, carrying life forward in soft revolutions. To live is to change form, to move from sunlight to soil, to air, again and again. If you kneel on the forest floor and scoop a handful of earth, you are holding the past and the future together. Tiny fragments of bone, bark and rain, each molecule waiting for its next purpose. The carbon in your skin was once a leaf. The water in your veins may have fallen as rain on ancient fern forest when the continents were still one. Even your breath contains atoms, exhaled by trees that no longer exist, yet whose lives continue in you. You are not outside the cycle. You are its continuation. When a tree falls, its journey does not end. It simply changes direction. Fungi spread through its wood, breaking it down into nutrients. Beetles tunnel through the bark. Moss and lichen move in, weaving green threads across its surface. In time, the trunk softens, its form collapsing into soil. From that soil, new shoots rise, small at first, but full of inherited strength. The forest feeds itself this way, a system of giving and receiving, so perfect it could only have been designed by time itself. We call it decomposition, but the forest would call it transformation. The forest would call it transformation. Even fire, that ancient force of change, is part of the circle. In dry seasons, when lightning strikes, the forest burns, not in anger, but in release. Ash enriches the ground, seeds burst open in the heat, and what seemed like destruction becomes creation disguised as flame. There are forests that depend on fire. Their seeds can lie dormant for decades, waiting patiently for smoke. Only when they sense the chemistry of renewal do they awaken, unfold, and grow. From the black soil, green returns. Every flame is a heartbeat, every ember a promise. The forest teaches us not to fear endings, for endings are simply beginnings that look different in the dark. In the Arctic tundra, where trees grow small and close to the ground, the cycle is slower. Here, decomposition pauses for months, sometimes years. What falls remains frozen, its return delayed but not denied. The earth keeps its memory preserved under snow, waiting for warmth. And when spring finally comes, the cycle resumes, swift, vibrant, unstoppable. The patience of the forest is beyond human measure. It does not rush to renew. It trusts the rhythm of the world. Perhaps this is why the forest feels eternal, because it never doubts time. In tropical jungles, the cycle is constant, a whirlpool of life without pause. Leaves fall and vanish within days. Fungi bloom overnight and are gone by morning. Rain falls, evaporates, returns again by afternoon. Nothing lingers, yet nothing is wasted. Energy flows in loops, so efficient, but every atom seems to know where it belongs. When scientists analyze the soil of rainforests, they find it surprisingly thin. Almost all the nutrients are held in the living bodies above it. The forest wears its wealth like clothing, passing it from tree to vine to insect to bird, and then back again. It is the most generous economy in existence. Everything shared, nothing hoarded. Somewhere deep in the Amazon, there is a single tree that may be the mother of thousands. Her seeds fall into the river, float downstream, and take root along the banks miles away. Entire groves carry her genetics, her memory encoded in wood and leaf. When one of her descendants falls, its nutrients return upstream through the water, feeding fish and algae that will in turn nourish the roots of the mother again. The circle widens endlessly, but it always returns to its center. Humans have cycles too, though we often forget them. Our days follow the sun. Our bodies renew their cells every 7 years. Our breath mirrors the rhythm of tides. Even our emotions move in patterns. Grief into peace, loss into growth, fear into acceptance. We are forests in motion, built from the same repetition, the same grace of renewal. To live well is to remember this. Nothing is final. Even in stillness, life is preparing its next beginning. The forest reminds us that time is not a line. It's a pulse, a circle, a dance that always returns to itself. A single acorn grows into a tree, which drops more acorns, which grow into a grove, which becomes a forest, which shades the ground where the first acorn fell. Generations overlap like waves, and the sound of wind through branches is the same song that played 1,000 years ago. This is continuity, not of individuals, but of essence. Every creature, every atom, every breath is a note in that song. When one ends, another begins in perfect harmony. Beneath all this lies a truth the forest has always known, that immortality is not about living forever, but about giving yourself back so that others may live. A leaf does not cling to its branch when its season is over. It releases, trusting that falling is just another way of returning. The wind carries it, the soil receives it, and from that surrender, 1,000 new leaves will grow. What if we could see every ending as a form of continuation we just can't yet recognize? The forest does. It has been practicing for millions of years. Even the stones beneath the forest floor participate in the cycle. They weather, they crumble, they release minerals into the soil. In time, those minerals become part of leaves, part of fruit, part of you. Eventually, they return to stone again, sealed back into the earth. Every rock, every pebble, every grain of sand is part of life's slow breathing. In this way, the planet is one vast organism. The forest simply, its lungs. Sometimes in the quiet of dawn, when mist still clings to the moss and the air tastes of rain, you can sense the fullness of this truth. The earth breathes through the forest breathes through you, and you, in your small but precious life, help the planet remember itself. Every action, every breath, every thought ripples outward, into soil, into air, into the endless circle of transformation. Everything returns. Rain is the oldest memory the forest keeps. Before there were trees, before there were rivers, there was rain, falling on rock, shaping the first valleys, carving the first paths for life to follow. Every drop that touches a leaf carries that memory of oceans of clouds, of the endless journey between sky and soil. The forest does not fear the storm, it welcomes it, opening its arms to receive what was always meant to return. When rain begins, the forest changes tone. The sound of falling water is not random. It has rhythm, measured and ancient. A light drizzle whispers through moss and fern, a soft percussion played on a million green instruments. A heavy downpour deepens the note, a heartbeat drumming through bark and branch. If you close your eyes and listen, you can hear how the forest and rain compose each other, a duet between air and earth. Every raindrop begins its life as vapor, lifted by sunlight from the sea, carried by wind. It drifts until the air grows cool, then condenses into cloud. When the weight is too much to hold, it falls, each drop carrying tiny traces of salt, dust, and life. Some of that dust may come from deserts, some from volcanic ash, some even from pollen. Every storm is a mixing of continents. Every drop of rain is a gathering of worlds. When that rain reaches the forest, it is transformed. It strikes leaves and splits into beads, rolling down veins like liquid glass. It pools in bark, collects in moss, soaks into the ground. Within hours, it begins to move again, sinking deeper into the soil, joining the hidden rivers beneath. A single inch of rainfall over a forest can mean millions of gallons of water. A slow flood that sinks instead of run. Roots drink it greedily. Fungi guide it between grains of soil. Streams swell and begin their descent. By the time that water reaches a river, it has already passed through thousands of lives, absorbed by roots, exhaled as vapor, consumed by insects, released by leaves. This is why the forest smells so alive after rain. It is breathing renewal. Oils and compounds called geosmin and petrichor rise from the damp earth, reminding us of fertility and time. Humans evolved to love that scent. It tells the brain, life is beginning again. Some forests create their own rain. In the Amazon, the trees release moisture into the air through tiny pores in their leaves. Each molecule of vapor rises, meets the cooler air above, and forms cloud. Then the clouds condense, and the rain falls again, feeding the same trees that made it. It is a perfect circle. The forest waters itself. Without it, the sky would dry, and the rivers would shrink. With it, the entire continent stays alive. The trees of the Amazon send their breath across the Atlantic, carrying moisture that will become rainfall in Africa. Forests, in this way, speak to each other across oceans. The planet's climate is a conversation, and trees are part of its language. In temperate forests, rain is gentler, a soft wash that deepens the color of bark that gathers in the curls of ferns. Moss swells, lichen brightens. The air fills with the quiet perfume of leaf and soil. Animals emerge after the storm, deer licking droplets from leaves, foxes stepping carefully through puddles. Every surface glistens, every scent sharpens. It feels like a world made new, even though nothing truly ended. It lifts dust from bark, awakens the hidden greens in every shade of leaf, polishes each stone until it shines. Even the light seems softer, diffused through mist, into 1,000 tiny halos. And when the last drops fall from the canopy, the sound that remains is not silence, but in tropical rainforests, the storms arrive like breath, sudden, deep, and rhythmic. Clouds form quickly, the sky darkens, and in moments, a waterfall seems to descend from the air itself. The ground floods, streams become rivers, and thunder rolls like the slow turning of the earth. Then, as fast as it came, it ends. Sunlight breaks through again, each droplet turning to gold. Birds begin to sing, louder than before, as if to celebrate endurance. Every gust, every flash, a sentence in a language of renewal. Even snow is part of the forest's rain. In boreal regions, precipitation arrives as white silence. Snowflakes drift between trunks, landing softly on branches that bow under their weight. For months, the forest sleeps beneath it, breathing faintly through the cold. The snow protects the soil from freezing completely, a blanket of stillness preserving life below. When spring comes and it melts, rivers roar with joy, carrying nutrients released by winter's rest. Each drop that falls in April was once a flake that glimmered under the northern lights. The cycle continues. Sky to snow, snow to stream, stream to ocean, ocean to sky again. It has never stopped. The memory of rain is stored in wood. Every tree ring tells of the years that were wet and the years that were dry. Wide rings mean abundance, narrow rings mean scarcity. In this way, the forest keeps its diary, a record of every season's mood. Paleobotanists can read those rings and trace back thousands of years of climate.
They can see droughts that shaped civilizations, floods that sculpted valleys, even the echoes of volcanoes and shifting winds. The forest remembers everything, but never clings. It learns, it adjusts, it endures. When you stand beneath rain in a forest, you are surrounded by life's purest act of generosity. Every drop touches something, feeds something, awakens something. You can feel it in your skin, the cool electricity of connection, the shared pulse of being part of the same planet. The sound of rain is music written in universal language, steady, rhythmic, kind. Its repetition soothes the brain, aligning your heart rate with its tempo. This is why people fall asleep to rain sounds. Your body recognizes the safety of continuity. Rain means tomorrow, and somewhere beyond all the weather, a single molecule of water begins again, rising, cooling, falling, touching leaf and soil and sea, perhaps finding its way to your glass, perhaps one day forming part of a tear, perhaps years later becoming rain again. The planet drinks and breathes in endless rhythm. So do we. When it rains, it is the earth remembering itself, and when you listen to it, you remember too. The forest is never silent. Even in stillness, it speaks, in rustle, in shimmer, in shadow. Its voice is the wind, and its language is light. When dawn returns, the forest wakes to color. Pale gold seeps between trunks, catching on dew, turning every droplet into a prism. Mist drifts low along the ground, a soft tide of vapor carrying the scent of soil and pine. The light filters through leaves in patterns so intricate that no two mornings are ever the same. If you stand beneath that slow-growing glow, you can feel the forest stretching, branches lifting, sap rising, roots pulsing with warmth. The first rays of sunlight are not only illumination, they are food, energy, memory made visible. Light is the forest's oldest companion. Long before eyes existed to see it, plants learned to read it. They evolved pigments that could capture photons, turning sunlight into sugar, and sugar into life. It was the first true magic, the conversion of something invisible into something tangible. Inside its green cells, tiny factories called chloroplasts hum quietly, converting light into energy with near-perfect efficiency. Photons arrive from the sun, each having traveled more than 150 million kilometers, only to end their journey inside the calm darkness of a leaf. There, they are absorbed, their energy stored, their legacy continued in the breath of all who live. Light does not vanish. When absorbed, it becomes life. And in that transformation lies the essence of the forest's peace. The reminder that energy never dies, it only changes form. Deke. When light moves through a forest, it takes shape. Some rays become soft gold through autumn leaves. Some scatter into emerald through spring canopies. Some pierce the shadows like silver spears, reaching down to the smallest flowers hidden in the undergrowth. Each beam travels a unique path, touching countless surfaces, warming moss, glinting off spider webs, painting shifting patterns that dance across bark. The forest is not static light. It is light in motion, a living kaleidoscope tuned to the rhythm of the sun. And yet, despite its brilliance, the forest never hoards brightness. It shares it evenly, filtering and softening the glare until every shade of green glows like a living jewel. Baker, living jewel. Wind is the second voice of the forest. Invisible, but everywhere. It threads through the canopy, bending branches, carrying seeds, shaping sound. The sighing of the forest in the wind is one of the oldest songs on earth. It is a song without composer, a melody born purely from motion. Every tree adds its own tone, the hiss of pine needles, the shiver of aspen leaves, the deep groan of old oaks. Together, they create a harmony that shifts with the weather. On calm days, it is a whisper. During storms, it is a chorus. Either way, it is always music, the sound of air,
remembering its passage through life. The wind is also the forest's traveler. It carries pollen from tree to tree, spores from fungi, the scent of flowers, the promise of new beginnings. Sometimes it brings rain, sometimes frost, sometimes only a touch that stirs the dust and vanishes. For creatures that live here, the wind is guidance. Birds ride its currents, insects navigate by its patterns, even plants bend and turn to feel its presence. A tree can sense the direction of prevailing wind and grow thicker bark on the side that faces it, a slow armor formed over years of endurance. To bend with wind is not to yield. It is to live wise. Every flexible branch that sways instead of breaks is a lesson in strength through softness. In the higher canopy, where sunlight is full and air is thin, leaves flutter like 1,000 green flags. Each motion cools the leaf surface, a natural balance between heat and breath. Some species even angle their leaves to follow or avoid the sun, depending on the season. This behavior, called heliotropism, allows plants to control their temperature as precisely as any animal might regulate its own. At midday, when sunlight is strongest, many leaves turn slightly edgewise, reducing exposure. In the evening, they open again to catch the last golden light. It is the forest breathing with the sun. Even without lungs, it inhales and exhales light in daily rhythm. When clouds gather, light softens, shadows disappear. The forest seems to sigh, as though relieved from brilliance. Rain begins, gentle at first, then firm. Wind changes tone, whistling through gaps and hollows, making music with water and wood. There is a scientific reason for this shift in sound. Raindrops scatter high-frequency vibrations, leaving only low tones that soothe the human ear. This is why the forest during a storm feels calm, even when filled with noise. It becomes a symphony tuned to frequencies of rest. The same physics that makes rain beautiful makes peace audible. As evening approaches, light fades to amber. The long shadows stretch and merge. The wind softens until it becomes barely more than breath. In that dimming hour, the forest enters reflection. Birds sing their last songs, marking territory that no one will challenge until dawn. The air cools, the scent of pine deepens, and the first stars appear through the branches. The wind still moves, but now it is slower, carrying the warmth of the day upward into the sky. The forest gives back what it borrowed, exhaling light as air. At night, when the moon rises, light changes character again. No longer golden, it becomes silver, a gentle illumination that seems to float rather than fall. Leaves shimmer like scales under the lunar glow, their surfaces reflecting faint traces of starlight. This light carries no heat, only calm. It moves like thought, soft and slow. Animals that thrive in darkness see the forest differently. Owls detect motion rather than color. Moths navigate by the glow of the moon filtered through leaves. Even plants respond, their growth subtly influenced by lunar cycles. The forest at night is not asleep. It is merely shifted into another kind of awareness. They are partners, each making the other possible. Wind, light, rain, and time. Together they are the forest's language. They speak through patterns, not words, through cycles, not commands. And though we do not always understand their syntax, we feel their meaning instinctively. When the wind moves through your hair, when sunlight warms your eyelids, when rain cools your skin, you are being spoken to. The earth is addressing you directly, in the language of sensation, and somewhere deep inside, some part of you still understands it. The forest does not measure time in seconds or hours. It knows only the language of seasons, the slow, deliberate shifting of color and light, the rhythm of change that requires no calendar. To the forest, time is circular. Spring flows into summer, summer fades to autumn, autumn dissolves into winter, and from that stillness, spring returns again. The circle is perfect, endless, forgiving, patient. Each season is a different voice in the same song, each playing its part in the long breath of the earth. Spring is the forest's awakening. It does not rush.
It stretches slowly, cautiously, like a dream returning to the body. The air softens, the frost melts, and water trickles again through sleeping roots. They have waited through months of silence, feeling the faint shift in temperature, the hint of returning light. When the balance tips, they begin. Cells divide, stems push upward, roots spread downward, like fingers seeking memory. The first shoots of green pierce the dark mulch, tiny, delicate, but unbreakable. This is the quiet power of spring, to emerge from cold and nothingness with no fear at all. Alder and willow stir early, drawing water from deep reserves. Beech and oak wait longer, testing the air before unfolding their leaves. The timing is crucial. Too soon, and frost will burn the buds. Too late, and the sunlight will be missed. In this delicate balance lies the forest's intelligence, an ancient rhythm honed over millennia, a choreography between light and life. Scientists have found that trees sense the length of daylight, adjusting their metabolism according to photons rather than temperature. Each cell holds a molecular clock tuned to the sun. When daylight exceeds a certain number of hours, genes awaken, sap begins to rise, the forest begins to breathe again. With the return of warmth, the air fills with motion. Insects hatch from bark and soil. Birds return from migration, their calls echoing through the soft green canopy. Bees hum between wildflowers, their paths invisible but precise. Each movement contributing to the forest's rebirth. The scent of spring is chemical poetry, volatile compounds released by leaves and blossoms that announce fertility to the air. These scents guide pollinators, signal growth, and even warn neighboring plants of approaching pests. To the forest, they are communication, messages carried on the breeze, each molecule a word in a green language of survival. By summer, the forest reaches fullness, the canopy thickens, sunlight filters through in beams of gold and jade, and the air hums with life. Every leaf becomes a solar panel, each one quietly manufacturing the sugars that will feed the entire ecosystem. Photosynthesis peaks, converting sunlight into the oxygen that fills our lungs. Streams run clear, flowers bloom without hesitation, and animals move with purpose. Fawns learn to walk, birds teach their young to fly, and the rhythm of day and night settles into gentle routine. The temperature beneath the canopy stays cooler than in open fields, up to 10 degrees lower, thanks to the evaporation of water from leaves. This process, called transpiration, acts like the planet's air conditioning, drawing heat from the atmosphere and returning it as clouds. Forests are the Earth's natural regulators, balancing temperature, not just for themselves, but for everything. Even in abundance, summer carries discipline. Not every seed will sprout, not every flower will set fruit. The forest conserves as much as it gives, knowing that the cycle ahead requires reserves. Roots store energy, leaves absorb and store minerals. Fungi weave deeper networks to distribute what's needed. Every part of the forest prepares quietly for the long descent into change. There is wisdom in its restraint, a reminder that even in flourishing, the world is preparing for stillness. Then comes autumn, the long exhale of the forest year. The sunlight fades earlier, and the angle of the sun grows shallow. The trees rid this change, and one by one, they begin to let go. The green of chlorophyll fades, revealing pigments that were always there. Carotenoids glowing gold and amber, anthocyanins blazing red and violet. The forest becomes a painter's dream, its colors more vibrant as life retreats inward. The chemistry of autumn is beautiful precision. Before shedding its leaves, a tree draws back what it can, nutrients, sugars, minerals, to store for the coming cold. Then a thin layer forms at the base of each leaf stem, weakening the connection until a single gust can set it free. This process, called abscission, is gentle. The leaf does not fall in death, but in trust. It releases itself to gravity, returning its body to the soil that once fed it. The sound of autumn is soft, a breeze through dry leaves, the faint crunch underfoot, the hush of creatures gathering what they need. Squirrels bury acorns they will never all retrieve. Some of those forgotten seeds will take root, continuing the cycle. Birds rise in flocks that turn and shimmer in the fading light. Insects retreat into cocoons. Frogs sink into mud. Bears grow heavy and drowsy. The forest slows its heartbeat. It breathes out the last of summer and prepares for its sacred stillness. Winter arrives not as an end, but as a pause, a necessary silence between breaths. Snow settles softly on the branches, muting every sound until the forest becomes its own kind of cathedral. Every surface glows faintly, catching what little light the sky offers. In this stillness, life hides, not gone, but waiting. Roots continue their slow work, drawing what little moisture remains from frozen soil. Beneath the frost, seeds lie dormant, their coats hardened, their chemistry suspended in a perfect balance between life and rest. Animals adapt. Some grow thicker coats, some enter hibernation, slowing their metabolism to a fraction of normal. Even those that remain awake move softly, as if respecting the silence of the season. The air in winter forests carries a particular clarity, cold, dry, crystalline. When sunlight filters through bare branches, the world feels infinite, as though time itself has paused to admire the scene. And in that pause lies the secret of endurance. For every resting seed, every sleeping root, every still creature is waiting not for return, but for transformation. The forest does not mourn its silence. It listens to it. It gathers strength from it. By the time the first thaw arrives, everything is ready. Water trickles again. Sap begins to rise, and the circle renews. The forest's patience is its wisdom. It never rushes from stillness into action. It waits until conditions are right, until warmth and light and time align. Then, without hesitation, it begins again. If you could live long enough, you would see this cycle repeat thousands of times, and you would realize something the forest has always known, that change is not loss. It is motion. It is life's way of remembering itself. In every falling leaf there is preparation. In every bud, remembrance. And in every season, a lesson about the quiet art of beginning again. The forest floor is another world, a kingdom beneath our feet, darker, quieter, but more alive than it seems. Here, in the soft bed of fallen leaves, 1,000 small civilizations coexist. Each handful of soil contains more living organisms than there are stars visible in the night sky. They move unseen, turning decay into fertility, death into rebirth. If the canopy is the forest's breath, then the soil is its mind, the hidden consciousness that remembers every step, every root, every rain. They are neither plant nor animal, but something between, a vast network of filaments known as mycelium that stretches through the ground like threads of white lace. Each strand is thinner than a human hair, yet together they form a network that can span miles. In some forests, a single fungal organism may weigh hundreds of tons, older than the trees it feeds. Through this underground web, fungi connect every root, every shrub, every towering trunk. They trade sugars and minerals. They pass messages of drought and disease. They share warnings and resources. Scientists call this system the Wood Wide Web, but the forest has known it forever. Through the mycelial threads, a tree can feed another that stands in shade, sending carbon and water to sustain it. A dying tree, sensing its end, can release its remaining nutrients into the network, a final act of generosity that nourishes the next generation. It is the purest form of wisdom, that life's purpose is to continue beyond itself. Mushrooms, the visible fruit of this hidden empire, are only brief moments of revelation. They rise after rain, bloom in silence, spread their spores, and vanish back into the dark. Each one is a doorway, a signal from the underground world that life is thriving below. There are mushrooms that glow at night, their light made by a chemical called lucifer. Some scientists believe this glow attracts insects that help spread their spores through the forest air, a subtle partnership between earth and movement, between stillness and flight. Other fungi break down the hardest substances: wood, bark, even stone. Without them, fallen trees would remain forever, and the forest would drown in its own memory. The fungi clean the world quietly, returning every molecule to circulation. They are the builders, the recyclers, the movers of matter. Termites, though small, can turn dead wood into fertile soil faster than fire or time. Beetles carve tunnels through fallen trunks, aerating them, making room for water and air. Ants build labyrinths underground, cities of soil that stretch for meters, with chambers for larvae, for fungus, for food. Each grain of earth moved by an ant changes the landscape slightly, making the ground richer, softer, more ready for root. It is said that if all the insects vanished, the forest would collapse within a year. If humans vanished, the forest would flourish again. This is the scale of importance, a reminder of humility, written in the language of biology. Even bacteria play their part, invisible but essential. They fix nitrogen from the air, turning it into a form that plants can use. They break down organic acids, release carbon dioxide for roots to breathe, and build tiny colonies that coat soil particles in life. Every root tip is wrapped in a halo of microbes, a microscopic community called the rhizosphere. Here, plants and bacteria trade constantly: sugars for minerals, oxygen for enzymes, waste for nourishment. It is the most efficient marketplace on Earth, and it never stops. In a teaspoon of forest soil, there may be 1 billion bacterial cells, each one performing work too small for eyes to see, but too vital for life to continue without. Roots do not simply anchor. They sense, search, and decide. At their tips, cells can detect gradients of moisture, chemistry, and vibration. They move deliberately toward what is needed and away from what harms. When roots of the same species meet underground, they recognize each other. They do not compete. They intertwine, merging into living cords that share water and stability. When they meet the roots of strangers, they maintain respectful distance. This invisible diplomacy keeps the forest balanced, each tree distinct, yet connected by cooperation. The network is so complex that scientists now compare it to the architecture of the human brain. Both systems are decentralized, responsive, self-organizing. The forest thinks without thinking, its intelligence made of chemistry, not neurons. Deeper still, life becomes stranger. Tiny creatures called tardigrades, water bears, sleep among grains of moss and soil. They can survive freezing, boiling, even radiation. When conditions grow harsh, they enter a suspended state called cryptobiosis, their bodies drying into microscopic husks. Years later, when water returns, they awaken again, as if no time has passed. In the forest floor, they are part of the ancient rhythm of resilient life, resting, waiting, reborn. The ground beneath us is not solid. It breathes. It moves in slow tides of biology and decay. When you walk through a forest, each step sets off tiny avalanches of motion, microscopic lives adjusting to the weight, roots flexing, fungi sensing vibration. The soil gives softly, like the skin of a sleeping giant. Every breath of air that rises from the ground is the exhalation of countless organisms. Carbon dioxide from decay, oxygen from roots, methane from bacteria, all swirling together into the unseen conversation between earth and sky. Even stones contribute. As they weather, minerals dissolve into water, feeding moss and fern. Iron, calcium, phosphorus, the building blocks of bone and bark alike. It is a reminder that the boundary between living and non-living is thinner than we imagine. The stone becomes soil. The soil becomes life. The life returns to stone, round and round, without beginning or end. In this underworld of the forest, time moves differently. A fallen leaf takes a month to vanish in the tropics, a year in temperate woods, and decades beneath snow. Yet the process is the same. Molecule by molecule, the forest eats its past to feed its future. You could say the forest remembers through digestion, a memory written not in words, but in chemistry. And we, as we breathe its air and walk its ground, become part of that same quiet remembering. Night has settled fully between the trunks, soft and heavy as velvet. The wind has gentled. The leaves no longer speak in words, only in the hush of understanding. The stars above the canopy blink slowly, their light filtering down through branches like thoughts through sleep. Beneath them, everything is breathing. The trees, the soil, the small lives hidden beneath bark and leaves. All of it moving, all of it resting, all of it part of the same great rhythm that you too belong to. It's there in the pulse of the wind, in the rise and fall of your own breath, in the way the forest seems to inhale when you exhale. You are made of it, of sunlight turned into sugar, of air once exhaled by leaves, of water that fell as rain on roots long before you were born. The forest lives in you, as much as you live within it. Every breath you take is a continuation of its story, every heartbeat a quiet echo of its timeless song. The forest does not dream of power or progress. It dreams of balance, of rain returning to river, of leaf returning to soil, of life giving itself back so that life may continue. Your heartbeat slows, your breath deepens, your mind quiets its motion, like a leaf settling onto still water. This is what the forest has been teaching all along, that rest is not the end of movement, but its completion. That silence is not emptiness, but fullness at peace. Above you, the canopy sways gently, 1,000 leaves moving together like the surface of the sea. They whisper to the stars, and the stars whisper back. Between them flows the quiet conversation of existence, infinite, kind, unbroken. The forest doesn't ask you to understand, it only asks you to be, to let go of the day, to let go of yourself, to fall into rhythm with the world that made you. So breathe, slowly, in, out, again. You are safe here. The trees are watching over you. The soil is holding you. The air is wrapping you in calm. And as the last thoughts drift like mist through your mind, the forest hums softly beneath the stars, carrying you deeper, deeper, into the long dream of the earth. Sleep now, traveler, sleep, and return to the rhythm that never ends. The forest will be here when you wake. It always is.